Welcome back, everybody, to Borak Overseas episode 6. Um, if you guys are still listening to us at episode 6 and you have listened to the past few 5 episodes, thank you so much. I just want to say we appreciate it so much. And to be honest, actually, it's been a while since I recorded the last episode. I think it was like a month ago. So now I'm trying to get back into that, into that podcast kind of mode, But everybody, today I just want to tell you, I've met a really interesting person on LinkedIn who has been to one of the most interesting places that I've never been to in my life. And actually, I honestly never thought of going until she reached out to me and told me that she was based at this location. I was like, oh my god, yeah, actually, now that I think of it, I've never had a friend from this place. And I'm not gonna review this place because I want you to tell us yourself, where is this amazing place that I was so curious to learn from you as well, right? So I think without further ado, everybody, I'm so excited to welcome our guest for today, Sarah. Sarah, welcome to Borak Overseas. Do you want to give us a brief intro about just where are you based at, the place that we're all very excited to hear about, and also what do you do for your living at where you're based at right now, and maybe also which part of Malaysia you're from. So just curious.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Sarah Azmi Wendler. Yes, thank you. I actually come from Bandar Baru Bangi, Selangor,
Nice,
Malaysia.
Bangi, okay.
And I have been living in Fairbanks, Alaska since 2017.
Alaska, that is the place. Sorry, continue. Sorry, I just had to call out Alaska because it's so yeah.
Alaska is the 49th state that joined the United States of America. We are not part of the contiguous United States. So you know how North America is really big, and then there's a huge chunk of North America that's United States. Alaska is actually on the Canada portion side on the top.
Right. Okay. It's very north. It's the most
very
northern state. Okay, of the U.S. Okay. Is it higher than Michigan? Is it?
Yes. Yes.
Oh damn. Okay.
Like most of Alaska is considered a subarctic climate because we are so far north. In Fairbanks, Alaska, we are the interior of Alaska. We're right in the middle, the heart of Alaska. And winters here, it gets up to negative 50 Fahrenheit, which is 40, negative 60 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
In the winter, but in the summers, we have lovely summers. We have.
What is the temperature in summer? I'm curious.
It can get as high as 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 34, 35 degrees Celsius.
In Alaska?
In summer, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. I guess there's no ice then at that time. Okay. All right. Okay.
Some parts there still are.
Okay. What about your just curious about climate, because I really have never been there. Because to me, the coldest place I've ever been is Michigan, but clearly we've not seen negative 60 degrees. But what time does what time does the sun set during the summer? I'm curious.
The sun does not set in the summer. We have sun. Okay. Yeah, the summers here are spectacular and amazing. Just green everywhere, wide, spacious areas because we are Alaska, lots of land. The temperatures are nice and the sun does not set. So summers are just the most amazing place you can be at. Wow. I know a lot of Malaysians are into salmon right now, salmon fish. And a lot of the salmon that Malaysians get, they come from Norway. They're farmed salmon. Oh, but Alaska, we have, we have, what would you call it? Fresh salmon that's
salmon
wild.
Everywhere. the land of salmon, which is easily available everywhere all year round, I suppose.
No. So salmon. Okay. Salmon goes out into the big oceans, and then they come back into the rivers to spawn. And so that's when you catch them when they come back, and when they're nice and fat and juicy with lots of the eggs, and that's when you catch a salmon basically when they come. And the difference in wild salmon versus farm salmon is out of this world.
Oh wow! Okay. I think we're gonna delve a little bit to the salmon there. I'm just very curious because I honestly have no idea what's out there in Alaska besides the ski dogs, the husky dogs. Yeah, but anyway, maybe let's take a step back. Maybe let's try, let's try to understand how did you end up in, Alaska, right? Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about, a background of how if your journey from Malaysia all the way to Alaska, from maybe like a little bit of high school days, uni days, early career, then Alaska. Which point did it come in your life? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started off, I guess, my career back in uni. I was doing chemical engineering.
Nice.
And in University of Technology, Petronas. And Petronas, because it's a school that's based off oil and gas, and my career was really focused on oil and gas at that point. After school, I went to work for Baker Hughes as a field engineer, and did that for like 3.5 years.
Sorry, Baker Hughes, for our audience knowledge, is it an oil and gas company or
it is an oil and gas service company, what they would call. So they do, like if you have a turnkey operation, they can do everything from all the drilling bits, the logging, the mud systems, upstream, and so they're not operators; they're just service. But my time as a field engineer has been, really good for me, because I've learned a lot on the field, and I was able to visit Houston as part of their training program. So that was my first introduction to the United States. And long story short, while I was there, I met my future husband.
Oh, you met your husband in Houston?
I did.
Is he an engineer as well, or?
Yes, we were both in Baker Hughes. We were both field engineers. We both had that starting program right there.
Okay, cool.
And then he told me he was from Alaska.
Oh, okay. Great change of weather. He went from like all the way up there, go to the south. Okay, all right. Is that but for work? Okay. Yeah.
But for work, he was just there for the training like I was, and then we clicked instantly. And then I visited Alaska in the summer, and it was amazing. Like the Alaskan summers, I can't speak enough for it. It's just the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. But after about 3.5 years in the oil industry, it was like one of those weird things with the economy at the time. When I joined Baker Hughes, oil prices were like $100 a barrel, which was extremely high even at that point, even in 2014. But after, as anybody who's ever worked in oil knows, there's booms and busts. There's cycles. And so I was there right at the boom, and I was hired on. I had a great prospect, and then there's a bust. And everyone around me was laid off. The industry went to major shifts. You have mergers upon mergers.
Okay. Curious, what year was this? Like which year? Like was it 2014? 2014. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then at that point, it was one of those things where, as an engineer, you don't understand. The oil prices are so high. Why are people getting laid off? And that made me, read all the articles that wasn't in school back then. And so it got me more interested in economics, especially, like applied economics. Why are people behaving the way they are? Why are businesses behaving the way they are? And so I decided to pursue my master's in applied economics. And
okay, cool.
And then that's where I found that UAF actually has a program for applied economics.
University
is University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Oh, University of Alaska Fairbanks. Nice. Okay. Oh,
yeah. So it was like, I asked my then boyfriend, was like, hey, is this a good school? And he went there. He did his master's there. I applied. I got into the program.
Okay.
And then I moved to the United States.
Okay. Was that the only school you applied to, or did you apply to other universities? Or it's like, no, Alaska's the only place we're going?
No, I strongly believe in charting your path, and like if I didn't get in this year, I'll get in that year. It's like this is the location I want to be in. This is where I'm going to focus my strength and attention to. Of course, I applied to other programs. They did have an MBA program. They had petroleum engineering program, but I really thought about what I wanted at that point, and I wanted to pivot. And so I pivoted hard. I went to economics, and then there I was, in Alaska, started my master's, and had the worst winter ever.
Worst winter ever. Oh goodness. What was so bad about it? Was it -60, like the lowest you've ever experienced, or?
It was -40, so it
Oh,
wasn't the coldest it's ever been. But it's also like, when you come from Malaysia, you've been working field
right.
in the
Okay.
hot heat, and then suddenly you just straight go into
Right. Start going to the
Fairbanks
coldest place
winter.
on. Yeah, okay. That's something, right? I'm just very curious, maybe besides the weather, because you were, you spent, your early undergraduate career, and even I think your first career, half of it was in Malaysia, then you went to the US, right? I'm just curious, what's the difference between education in Malaysia versus US? Because on this show, everybody has been it's always a comparison between US and UK, but when there was never US versus Malaysia so far yet lah.
Oh,
Yeah,
in
so,
education.
or it was Malaysia versus UK. Nobody has compared directly with US, so I'm curious from your perspective.
Um, it's definitely less textbook based. The
Mhm,
the cohort that I was a very small cohort, and then we had access to all the professors right there.
mhm.
And these professors are not, they're academics, but the way that Alaska has funded their programs is
Hmm.
through the state. So a lot of the professors work directly on state projects.
Oh, like state-funded projects mostly.
Yes,
Oh.
so like they would enlist the help of all the professors to create their programs. Like Alaska is very similar in Malaysia in that sense. We have a huge resource from oil and mining industry, which Malaysia
Mhm.
also has, but they don't leave those state policies to just any consultant from wherever. They enlist
Resources to
state
like
resources.
work.
So yeah, so the professors are actually working right for the state, and then we see as students like, hey, these are what we're learning directly
Mm.
translated into policy that then the state uses. And so it's very like hands-on experience. Even one of the projects that we did for right before we graduated was Alaska was was trying to legalize the marijuana industry, and
Oh.
they were asking the professors, hey, how would this look like for the state? And
Mhm.
so they turned that into a course. And what we studied, like, okay, what are the impacts on jobs, on income?
Mhm.
What kind of revenues can we see? What is the supply and demand looking like for the next 10 years? So we
Mhm.
had direct influence and like hands-on learning that we can apply to the state. And so
Hmm.
that's what I feel is lacking. Like there was nowhere in UTPS, as great as it was, that we were going to affect policy.
Mhm.
Um, some of those learnings can be patented and then taken to the service companies, and they can take it and buy it and use it, for
Mhm.
example. But we were directly hands-on, impacting the community that we lived in.
Right.
That was huge.
Mhm. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So I'm curious, what was the findings for that particular project? Did they was so they were gonna legalize marijuana. What
They did. They have
they did?
since legalized marijuana,
Right. Okay.
and our predictions have mostly came true, except like with any market, when you don't know the transfer from black market to legal markets, there's
Right.
a gap
Okay.
that you don't know where the prices would be. And
Right.
so we
Right. Okay.
were like, taxes should be this high, even though like it will hurt producers in the middle. So they're revamping that. They're trying to like reduce the tax rates for the marijuana players. But yeah, like most of our predictions, as much as we can from our economic tools, came true.
Oh, okay, interesting. Wow, damn. Okay, that's really cool. I'm curious. So after where you studied there, so the master's was like 1 year or 2 years, sort of.
It was 2 years.
It was 2 years. Nice. And then after that, so you started working in Alaska, is it? Right? That's how you.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Um, I went straight back into the oil and gas field. So I'm not very proud of myself for this one, but it's one thing I
Oh,
knew was something that I could get a job really quick in.
right, because of your background in oil and gas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I went back to the field and just stayed on the North Slope for a long time, and had a lot of experience, going back to the rig and running drilling fluid system up there. And then
Mm-hmm.
COVID happened.
Right. Okay. Right. And how did that affect you know yourself
Oh,
and your job and uh
yeah. So COVID, we have Alaska has like a huge drilling, like green fields up on the North Slope,
mhm,
and the only way you can get in there is if you have like a private company chartered plane going into the Prudhoe Bay. That's what the area call it, and then they truck you
mhm.
out on little or go on little baby Cessna planes, which is really tiny, just to get them to job sites. When
Right.
COVID happened, there was no you can't go in, you can't go
You
out.
can't go in. Oh, okay. If you can't go in, you can't go out. How do you get the oil out? Okay, sorry, that sounded like a that's a
No,
little
so the
some
people who
pun.
were working on camp stayed on camp. When the news broke
Oh.
that hey, travel was going to be restricted,
Mm-hmm.
instead of having like my normal schedule of like 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, I had to stay there for 9 weeks straight.
Mm.
And then on the flight back, they told everyone they were laying off everyone. They were cutting down production, they were cutting down drilling. It was craziness.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. But I
yeah.
assume that got better after COVID was over, and you know, it got better for you as well. You okay?
I I finally stayed home for a long time.
I'm just curious, right? So because this time with a degree in like applied economics, right? So I believe did you take on a more like management type of role within oil and gas, or was it still that the fuel engineer and
Yeah.
just out of curiosity?
It was still field engineer, and I did that. Like the I was so comfortable with my schedule. It was like 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. There was like really
Okay.
great work balance. Why punch higher?
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. But then when I got laid off, um, it
Oh, you
was
got
like
laid off. Okay.
I
Okay.
did. Yeah,
From your
like
first company.
half the field personnel during COVID, everyone got
Okay.
sent home,
Okay.
and
Okay.
everyone got sent home, and basically like they were running bare crews up there, and they weren't really drilling and planning for the season. It
Okay.
was it was like it was a great time for me though, because also like at that time, like I have my economics degree that I don't use. I need to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start a family. I don't want to be in the field. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I pivoted right back. Uh, at the time COVID happened, I got pregnant. I stayed home for 2 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
Nice.
stayed home for 2 years. I had my son, and then when I
Mm-hmm.
was ready, I started looking for jobs that were in
Right.
town, that were
Right.
friendly for mothers,
Mm-hmm.
that that was a career path instead of just a
Right.
job. That's what
Right.
I was.
Exactly.
I'm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and,
And what did you find? I'm curious.
and it's one of those things that people don't talk about, but like it's really really hard to pivot. If you
Right.
have had 8 years of experience in the field as a field engineer, it's really hard to find a job in town as as a new mother,
Mhm.
and then still have the same kind of like non entry level positions. And
Mhm.
so it was a long search. It was not an easy one.
Right.
I
Mhm.
I definitely used all the connections that I could,
Mhm.
and and I got a job at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Um,
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
That's really cool. That sounds
so
really interesting.
yeah, and I am so grateful that they took me in. It is a very prestigious, institution. It's a national lab,
Mhm.
and their focus was on energy and efficiency and sustainability, and that
Mhm.
really appealed to me. And they also had like a small campus where close to where I live in
Okay.
Fairbanks.
Cool. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so
Just curious, was the role more of like a researcher kind of role or was it more like policymaker? Mm, yeah.
I was in project management. So, like I said, it took me. I was at home for 2 years, and those 2 years
Right.
was like really hard to get a job that was really what I was interested in, was suitable for
Mhm.
me, suitable for a new
Yeah.
mother. And so I
Mhm.
took that 2 years and took a lot of courses on trying to figure out what I want to do.
Right. Yeah. Trying to figure out what's the next thing for you, right? Mhm.
Yeah, and here, since I've been a resident long enough, I qualified for a scholarship from the Mom Project, and the
Oh,
Mom
okay.
yeah, I'm giving them such a big shout out. The Mom Project, based out of the United States, they what they're trying to do is upskill women who have stayed home as a
Oh,
mother.
okay. So it's a state funded initiative, right? Is that
It's not. It's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit. Okay, got it.
It's a nonprofit.
Okay.
And so they ask what women who have just recently had stayed home at least for 2 years to join their program, and they match you with what kind of skills you want to upskill. They get you through the program, and then they help you get jobs. And so they had like interview sessions, how do you practice for interviews? They all those things that help women transition from being stay-at-home moms back into the workforce.
Wow, okay. That reminds me a little bit, because I recently just came out of a talent corp in a program here in London, and I feel like they were talking about something very similar about like programs that help mothers who have stayed home for a while taking care of their children, right? And then they want to transition back to the workforce. There are also programs like this. Okay, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you got the support that you need. I think now let's shift to a really interesting part that I think you're very excited to tell everybody. Is about life in Alaska, and I'm excited too. I think I'm just curious, like, how are people like in Alaska? Like how's the lifestyle there? And also maybe just a little about is there a Malaysian community there, or not a lot? Take it away.
Yeah, so life in Alaska, I would not say it's easy. A lot of Alaskans are more in tune with the nature side of living. So a lot of people live off subsistence lifestyle. That's what we call it. Subsistence lifestyle is where you go and hunt your own food. You go fish your own fish. You grow, we have a huge garden too. We grow our own greens and we freeze them for the winter time when we can't grow anything. And that has changed a lot of my perspectives in life too. And like, what values do I want to teach my children? But subsistence lifestyle here is very predominant. Like you see a lot of hunters go and catch one big moose, and that's their meat for the year. A lot of people have chickens in their back. Yeah, one huge moose is enough for like 1.5 years for a family before. It's huge. Same and then we do a lot of trades too. Like our neighbors are avid fishermen.
Okay.
And so they catch a lot of fish, and we trade them our carrots, for example. Like subsistence
so there's
lifestyle.
a barter system going on there. Is it a barter system that trade carrots for fish or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. It's because like the cost of living in Alaska, it's crazy expensive. When I say crazy, we are the last chain in the supply chain for food. So what we saw in COVID was like, you can't get things up here. It's harder to get food up here. And so and people here have lived here for like centuries. They know how to survive here, and that was a big shock for me. Like in Malaysia, I don't know where to go catch.
I don't ask anybody in KL where to catch a fish. Yeah, we don't even know where to go fishing. Yeah,
and I had to learn that, and even the cost of like heating a house in the wintertime, it can get as much as $1,000 a month just to heat. So that's like in comparison, like 4,700 ringgit just to heat the house, not including electricity, the rent, the cost of food. It's just to heat the house because it is so cold.
Okay. I'm very curious right now. How is it so hard to get things up to Alaska? Is it because it's just really far from everything? Like
it's really far from everything. It's really far from everything. We don't have any manufacturing here. Well, we have some like oil refineries, but there's no manufacturing here. And just to put things into scale and perspective, like Malaysia is so tiny. we are 1.5 time land mass size of Texas. We are that big.
Alaska.
And yes, Alaska's that big.
Okay.
And that big of land, but we only have about 750,000 people total in the whole state of Alaska.
Oh, wow, that is very, very sparse. Okay.
Very sparse, and that's why a lot of the community-based things really excite and interest me. You do everything for the community because this is like such a small place that we have, and Alaska is such a beautiful place that we want to protect it. And you can be from all over the world, but once you're here, you're Alaskan.
Okay.
Everybody pretty much, who stays anyway, they have pretty much the same mindset. We protect our land. We live as much as we can off the land, and we give back to the community.
Okay. And I'm just curious. So because just now you talked about a little bit about the main economies like manufacturing, and then there's like mining and then oil and gas, right?
So we don't have manufacturing. A lot of the industries here are, we get a lot of federal funds to run our state, but our main industry is the oil and gas industry. We have like one of the biggest oil fields in the world in Prudhoe Bay.
Okay.
We have a lot of mining operations around town, but around the state. And tourism is a huge one too. Tourism is a huge industry.
Tourism is a huge. Okay.
Yeah. People come to Alaska because the nature is like out of this world.
Okay, yeah, I've never been there. I'm gonna add that to my life bucket list right now because I've seen lots of amazing pictures. I'm just curious. Do they do like? What about like recreational activities? Is my question. I was gonna ask like, do they do the ski dog skiing? Because that's what I still see on TV. But yeah, recreational activities in general. I'm curious. Like, what do people do for fun? And all to relax.
So,
yeah.
The winter time when it gets really hard, I don't see a lot of people coming out. Like when it's -40, nothing's fun outside. But when it gets to like -25, for example, you start seeing people go cross country skiing and snowboarding is always the thing. In the winter time, what we do as a family is we go camping a lot because just the nature is so nice.
During winter, you say you go camping. Okay.
Oh no, we don't do camping in the winter.
Sorry, during the summer. Yes, sense, right? Yeah, sorry, I was like doing winter camping. Okay, that don't make sense.
During summer, we do a lot of camping. Okay. There's a lot of cool stuff too to do in winter, like the northern lights or the auroras come out.
Northern lights, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and because where we're living, we're pretty far away from like the middle city that we have, so we can just see it from our deck.
Nice.
From the yeah, it's like one of the things. You just go outside and like, oh yeah, Northern Lights is out.
Northern Lights on. That's something every night. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. What a beautiful view, right? How's the Malaysian? Are there any Malaysians in Alaska? Are there a lot? Like, just curious.
There's not a lot in Fairbanks. I have met a few. One of them, she was actually a military wife, and we have a military complex right here. And so I was like, oh, randomly meet a Malaysian here.
Okay.
But there is more than a dozen, I would say, in Anchorage. And the funny thing about being abroad is like, you see a Malaysian, you're like, yay, but you see an Indonesian, you're also like, yay.
Yeah, because it's Southeast Asian. Woo, Garrett. Yeah. Okay. What has kept you in Alaska? I bet you've been in Alaska for how many years now? Like, what has kept you here for this long?
Yeah, it's going to be 8 years in October. I do I do really enjoy the work-life balance.
Nice.
It takes me 7 minutes to get to work.
Oh, do you walk, drive, or?
I drive 7 minutes. I know coworkers who just cycle to work, but I'm not that quite fit yet. But it takes 7 minutes to get to work. I do think there's it takes 7 minutes to get to work. My workplace to my son's daycare is only 5 minutes drive. It's one of those things like I have a really good setup at this moment. But it's also what I can learn here.
Okay. What do you say? What do you like learning from Alaska? I'm very curious.
So because where I'm living, Fairbanks, Alaska, is a very small community. It's 100,000 people total in the whole borough, and you get to know every piece of like government, and city government, local borough government, and then where we play a part in it, and then you can contribute to the community. Like everybody's working together to make this place a nicer place. Okay. Yeah, and because it's small enough for your impact to make a difference, I'm learning like, okay, what works and what doesn't in government. What works and doesn't in terms of putting policy in place. What works and what doesn't in helping community rise up. I don't think I've ever been given the chance when I was in Malaysia. There's always like higher politics that we don't see. Here, it's a very small government, local government that I can see. I can make an impact. I can contribute meaningfully. And so that has made a difference in like how I approach things and what and you're always trying to leave this world a better place for your children. And
That's
so
very
all
interesting.
those kind of bring into play. Like, yeah, I like what I'm doing, what I'm contributing, what I'm bringing to this town. And so, and they're, like, those are things you can learn. And all these little things like, oh, yes, there was a scholarship from others. Those are things you can learn and pass on to and bring back to Malaysia. Hopefully. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought actually, because I like the fact that because it's you tell because what I understand is like it's easy to learn because the test bed is small, so when you do something, you can just directly go make that impact without having to wait for approvals from 200,000 top guns up there, right? So yeah, I totally understand. It's like it's about the hierarchy and just the fact that a small community has less politics, so you get things done quicker as well, right? That's a very interesting thought. I'm curious. Let's say you were to, if you wanted to, if you wanted to pitch to a Malaysian who's looking to, go overseas either to study or for like just for career purposes, just to, get some exposure, right? How would you pitch to them to come to Alaska? I just just a fun question, Yeah, or maybe you're like, yeah, I think I won't pitch to them. They can choose whatever they want. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Alaska is the right place for many people. Like, if you have not lived out in the wilderness before and like survived, I don't think you'll be comfortable with Alaska. If you need to go to a mall, tough luck. There's not one here.
Okay, there are no malls.
There's like not the malls that we picture in Malaysia. Like huge malls and all that. We don't have that here.
Like, because the last time when I was in the US, the malls were all flat. Because our malls are like taking escalator all the way.
Yeah.
This is just
it's all strip malls, right? Yeah. Yeah, so it's similar here, but much smaller scale, like much smaller scale. And so if you're looking for another city to migrate to, Alaska's not it. However, if you are into adventure, if you're into proving yourself, like, this is a great place to be. My favorite story is like when I got married to my husband, I told him I was cold, like, hey, I'm cold, do something about it. He gave me an axe, showed me where the wood was, and say, hey, get yourself warm. That is the kind of like
to cut the tree to make fire to get the fire. Okay, all right.
that kind of like mental fortitude you kind of have to survive in Alaska. It's not easy. It's not easy living at all here. But like the work-life balance you get, the nature that you get to in touch with, like interact with, it's another level. So it's not for everyone, I would say.
Okay.
It's not for most people.
Okay.
Actually.
Yeah, no, I understand. Like, I think personally for myself as well, having to cut a tree for firewood, I'm gonna have to think twice about that. But just curious, at that point, do you guys actually use like cut trees, make the firewood yourself, like to warm?
Pretty much. Oh, so we have a boiler system. So we have diesel
boiler system. Okay.
Yeah, but because we are so rural and so remote, and when there's like a weather warning, for example, you could be out of power for 2 or 3 days. And if you don't have wood and you can't heat your house, then all your plumbing becomes frozen and it breaks, and your house will fall apart. So you have to be prepared. You have to have like 2 weeks worth of food in your pantry, which we do.
Right.
The survival up here is
the survival skill out there. Okay, but that's really interesting though. That's a very interesting perspective. I don't think I have had friends because I studied in the US, right? I have friends from like a lot of different states, but the first time talking to a friend from Alaska, so this is very interesting, very new and interesting to me, and I'm so glad we are able to share it with our audience today, right? Just curious, a little bit about future plans. So I suppose it's going to be Alaska for actually a few decades now, because you're or what do you think? Like and what are some like near-term plans or thoughts? Like, what do you think?
So I pivoted again. So so I left the National Renewable Energy Lab about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, and I transitioned to the natural interior gas utility. So it's a utility that provides natural gas to Alaska, and I'm in construction management. And so I work in the summers, and then I work remote in the winters. So my goal has always been to like spend winters in Malaysia and summers in Alaska, because it's a very I get the best of both worlds kind of thing. It's still a long way there. Like trying to afford 2 houses at 2 places, trying to afford travel, trying to afford schooling for kids when you have to do 2 schools or transition between.
Oh yeah, that's true, because then they would spend they would go to school in Malaysia during the winter, and then in the summer they go back to the US. Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
it's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge. So like we're trying to mark our pathway towards having 6 months here and 6 months there. We don't know how that's going to look like. We're still trying to cost it out. But I do have the opportunity, and I would love to be able to go back to Malaysia and give back to Malaysians and give back to, because I think the biggest thing that I've felt was the ease of transition that I've had here. It's not uncommon at all for people to decide one day, hey, I'm gonna get a degree in something and just go for it when they're in their mid-30s or mid-40s. I think that's a lot harder in Malaysia to transition careers, to transition, lifestyle, to transition all that is very harder. It's much harder in Malaysia, but here, people made that possible. If you're willing to work for it, there's avenues for you to do that. And so bringing that to Malaysia, I feel like that kind of mindset. A lot of my friends in uni are still oil and gas 10 years from when we graduated, because that's the career path that they chose, and that's where they have to stick with. And either that or they go into insurance, which I'm like, I have no idea why. There's so much more things you can do
in oil and gas than suddenly go to insurance, right?
Yeah, there's so much more things you can do, and there's so much things that the government itself in Malaysia can implement, so that these people who are so smart and so bright can bring back the community. So it's like, there's so many things that I wish Malaysia would pick up and get from here. And like even subsistence lifestyle in Malaysia, it's not something that's preached on. It's not talked about. Exactly. It's like, I can bring it a little bit back. It's
I think that kind of lifestyle, maybe more of the rural areas, maybe near the rural areas near the coastline, right? Maybe you would see more of this kind of very survival driven type of lifestyle. But I think in most of the city centers where most people are at, I think that you don't expect that that kind of it's like New York City, right? You wouldn't expect somebody in New York City to go fishing with you. I'm not sure. Would you? Yeah, so maybe they would. I don't know.
That is a economic and policy issue, isn't it? People from the rural coastal lines are moving into the big cities because they're not finding jobs, and it shouldn't be the case. They should be able to survive where they're from.
Where they're from, exactly.
Where they're from, what knowledge they've gained in that specific area, and keep those development there, keep those youth there, keep the jobs in there, and that's not talked about. People are moving back into the city. That shouldn't be it.
Yep. Actually, that's very interesting. That's a very good point. Yeah, I think a lot of Malaysia's discussion when it comes to policy making does not talk too much about keeping jobs in the rural areas. It's more about just creating jobs in general, but we don't talk about like how job creation can happen in rural areas as well. Not necessarily all jobs are in the bigger cities, right? So I think
jobs and lifestyle. It comes hand in hand to me anyways. You want the jobs to be that they can feed into the lifestyle, right? And the lifestyle youth are envisioning from TikTok, whatever, it's like living in a city. And that shouldn't be the only avenue available. It's really cool to live in a coastal rural region area, but no one's actually popularized it because there's no future for them. Education in those areas are not, taught the right way. In Alaska, there's classes for how to survive in the winter, the right clothing, how to preserve your food, how to fish. Those are taught in schools. Those are taught in universities.
Wow.
So that people know how to survive here and actually thrive. They don't have to move from wherever they are.
Alaska to New York, to get a job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
they can survive here if they need to. The education is tailored to those people living here. And Malaysia's not doing that. The rural coastal areas are not teaching how to raise chickens properly. Those things need to be taught, and those need to be developed, and those lifestyles don't need to change. It just needs to strengthen, and some economic development can happen right where they are. And so it's like, how many people who live in the island actually have boats? You see, if you go to like all the tourism, they know how to run boats, but only a few people have licenses. Only a few companies actually are making money off of it. Everybody else is making a little bit of money off it. It's those things can spur different directions to the youth that's not touched on.
Yeah, I think that's actually, now that you're striking me as an idea, as this is like a market gap there, right? I think there's not a lot of people talking about this kind of like education for that fits the lifestyle in that specific area right now. I think people are all just thinking about Malaysia semiconductor, Gen AI, data skills to all these digital skills. I think the focus is a lot on that, but I think not much has been done for more rural areas survival type of skill, right? It's all things that are in the city, right? So that's really interesting. Actually, I know that I work for Talent Corp, but it's just that I attended a Talent Corp event yesterday, so I'm just like reflecting upon the things that some programs that they have, right? Because you were talking about hopefully you can contribute to Malaysia return someday in the future, of course. Not recent, but someday in the future, right? I think they were talking something about like this return experts program, right? Where I think okay, it sounds like you know about it. Okay,
I'm very interested because of like the PR aspect of it. Like, so they wrote there that spouses can get PR, and that's always been a really hard thing that me and my husband are trying to figure out. Because right now, if he were to go back to Malaysia, he has to get a visa run every 90 days, which is not something we're interested in. But it's also like very it's very limiting the return core. Like, I have to go back to Malaysia and stay there for 5 years. Okay, but my choice would be spending 6 months there and 6 months here. Why can't I have that?
Right. Okay.
I'm no less Malaysian just because I choose to.
You 6 months here, 6 months there, right? Exactly. Okay. I'll take this as a feedback for them. I'm not with them. So, no, it's just I attended yesterday, so there were a lot of things I was reflecting upon. But that's a very interesting point, right? Flexibility is important, right? If you want to, I think in this day and age, right, you cannot tie anybody down. I think the more flexible, adaptable you can be, that's how the more likely people are to be receptive of an initiative or program, right? But actually, I think you've shared so much about Alaska and just about yourself, and I learned so much today from you about just Alaska in general, and especially this discussion about education fitting the lifestyle. I think it has opened my mind to something new that I didn't quite think of a lot about in the Malaysian context, right? I just want to ask one question that we ask all of our guests, before at the end of every show, right? It's like, how has your experience living overseas, and in this case Alaska, shaped your perspective as a Malaysian? A little bit deep. You can take some time to like think about that, but if you got to answer right away, I'm actually very curious to learn from you, because you've been 8 years in Alaska. But I can really sense the Malaysianness in you still. so what do you think?
I appreciate all that Malaysia has given me. As I grow wiser, the more I want to give back to Malaysia. And the way I can do that is bring all the experience that I've gained living abroad, studying abroad, working abroad, and give it back to Malaysia. I think there's a lot of things that we can bring back and improve Malaysia on, but it's not one person, it's collective community. Living in Alaska specifically has brought out a sense of community that I can't put into words. Like, you as an individual human, you as an individual family, for example, you you cannot live of your own. Everybody is a community. Everything ties together. Supply chain doesn't work if there's no volume, for example. So my experience has been that, like, you are not alone. Malaysians are everywhere in the world. We are everywhere. We bring our own sense of identity. But so be flexible. I think that's the biggest one. Like, you have to adapt to wherever you are from. You have to learn from which land you're on. You have to respect the rules of that land. Bring your own sense of identity, but bring it back to Malaysia. Bring all the good that you can. I think, like, like all the conquerors back in the world, the Mongols, for example, they conquered all the lands, but they took all the learnings and then applied it, brought it back into their tribal communities. Why not? We should do that too. Malaysians are all over the world. You should treat it the same way. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
That answers the question. I think I think that's very right. I think being adaptable is key here, right? Because I think even in Malaysia, the importance of adaptability is because we live in such a Malaysia is so diverse, right? I mean, we got people of different race, religion, cultures, right? And think about Sarawak, right? And Sabah, there's so many ethnic groups there, right? And it's key to be able to be flexible in order to to like work together to build a country. It's always a collective effort, right? And it's not just one specific group of people who are given an opportunity to do this. It somehow has to be given. Somehow you have to think about this a little bit economics. How do you what's that again? Income inequality, right? How do you solve that kind of problem? And I think adaptability and flexibility in policy making and community building is so important in that sense. And that really answers the question. Yeah, I think that's something I learned as well being overseas, right? I studied in the U.S. I worked there, and then I went back to Malaysia. Then suddenly I come here again to London, right? It's also I realized that I just adapted, right? Like I just I'm ready anytime to be moving back to Malaysia, moving out again, right? And then whenever people throw me into different situations at work where I'm required to get buy-ins from people of different of different cultures and beliefs, right? That's where this adaptability comes again. So I think I totally agree with you in that sense. And I just want to say, Sarah, thank you so much, right? Like I'm so glad that we met. Actually, I was going into this session, I was really just like, I'm just really curious, because I don't even know what it's like to be in Alaska, because I've never met anyone there, and honestly, I didn't even know what the economy is that over there is like. But I think today I learned something, and I hope we can. I can. I'm so glad that I'm able to give you a platform to share about about your thoughts and opinions about lifestyle fitting education policy, and also your thoughts on the return experts program, which I don't have a perspective yet, because I do not qualify as an expert just yet. I'm still very early in my career, but I really appreciate those opinions, and I hope our audience, I'm sure, will benefit a lot from hearing your story as well. I'm just curious, any last thoughts for listeners, anything that you want to pitch, and
my pitch would be come visit Alaska. I think you'll be pleasantly shocked how nice the summers are. I mean, I would say don't come in the winter. I would definitely
I would say summer, to clarify, summer, is it in June or May until like August, something like that?
June until August. Yeah, the salmon runs start around August. So when I say the salmon comes the year.
Right. Okay. So the salmon come in August and they go away in. Do they go away?
It depends on where you are in the state, but like around September, mid-September, they're all gone.
Okay.
They die.
Okay.
So salmon cycle, they come up, they lay their eggs, and then they die.
And then they okay. Like, nature happening. Okay, summers.
Yeah, so you want to catch them right when they come in, when they're still alive, because you don't want
that's August, right? That's where they come. Okay. So August is still summer, dear listeners. So you got that down. Summers, Alaska. I think I'm adding that to my life goal list right now, because I'm also doing a lot of solo traveling here in Europe. So And I hope to do more.
If you come in winter, it's a lot cheaper, and you can do a lot of winter activities like ice fishing, snowboarding, skiing, cross country skiing, all beautiful. And Northern Lights are crazy amazing here. Crazy amazing.
Okay.
Like you can see them anywhere, so it's like really easy. Come Fairbanks in November, it's just Northern Lights every night outside the house, and you're like, oh, another one.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Definitely adding that to my life goal list now, and to our listeners as well. I think this is something, the next holiday destination in the next few years. We're all adding it to our list right now. But I think without further ado, I just want to say thank you again, Sarah. This was an amazing session, and to our listeners, we hope you enjoy. If you listen to the end, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed all the stories that we've shared today. And if you're still following, and if you haven't followed us, feel free to follow us on Spotify and YouTube for updates on our episodes. And can't wait to bring in another new guest sometime nearer in a few weeks' time. And this guest, I hope, will be also bringing a lot of insightful thoughts on experiences that he or she has in that specific part of the world that they're based in. But I think if that's not, we'll see you again in the next episode of Borak Overseas. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.